Hello class, welcome to week 13 of Reentry and Pathways to Desistance. We are almost there. So let's dive into what we'll be covering this week. So our learning objectives will be to analyze the interplay between research and policy in reentry, to summarize how individual level characteristics, community and social conditions, and public policies intersect to negatively impact successful reentry for those with a felony conviction. We will be able to support the use of education as a tool for reentry and discuss mitigation-focused reentry as a mercy-oriented approach. So while policy often attempts to mitigate the grave impacts of incarceration on reentry, specifically those with a felony conviction, there oftentimes are gaps between what research says will work and then what policies are actually adopted and implemented. So one solution offered to this issue is mitigation-focused reentry, where we attempt to mitigate with factors and influences from the individual's impacts of incarceration. So this week, we're really going to dive into the intersection between research and policy in reentry. We will also look at the importance of education in propelling an individual's life forward in a positive way. So education can be one of those mitigating circumstances or factors. Then you're going to take this one step further by actually creating a policy that's going to take into account the stories from reentrants and what the research says actually works. So to do that, you're going to read Education's Failed Promise: How Public Policies Educate a Criminal Underclass. You'll read Mercy-Oriented Reentry and Reintegration: Lessons from Policy, Research, and Practice. Those are both in your Beyond Recidivism text. Then I want you to review the Philadelphia's Mitigation Protocol that's within this week's module. It really explains how Philadelphia is trying to implement the mitigation-oriented approach. And then you can review the Barred Prison Initiative website, how the Willie Horton ad played on racism, which is talked about in one of the articles this week. Just thought it was an interesting addition. And then the National Alliance of Sentencing and Mitigation Specialists website I put on there, as again, it's talked about in one of your articles this week. There's also a few policy examples for you to review as you get ready and start thinking about how you're going to do your policy assignment. And then watching College Behind Bars Part 1 video. It was very interesting to see how college works in these prison initiative programs. So that's a good watch, maybe while you're relaxing on the couch at night. And then also listening to the Incarcerated Men and Women Find Rehabilitation and Hope in College Behind Bars podcast. So maybe listen to that on one of your drives to work or to class. It's about the College Behind Bars initiative or the Barred Prison Initiative. So all three of those sort of go together. So then what you're going to do is submit your week 13 quiz question. You will complete the week 12 quiz. And your big assignment this week is to actually create a policy. So you're going to develop a policy. After reading all of this week's material, how it discusses that reentry policy is at times misaligned with what the research says works in reducing recidivism and increasing the rehabilitative potential of an individual. Instead, policy tends to be racially and politically fueled. So knowing that individual level characteristics, community and social conditions, and public policies all intersect to impact how successful somebody will be in reentering society, I want you to create a prison policy that would support an individual's successful reentry. So you can focus on any aspect that you would like, whether it's education, family and social support, employment, financial stability, substance abuse, mental health, healthcare, mercy-oriented reentry, anything you can think of that was covered in this week's material that you believe is important in increasing the likelihood that that reentrant is going to be a productive member of society, while also keeping in mind and taking consideration for public safety. So there's 4 key components that you're going to include in this assignment. You'll need an overview, an intent, criteria, and procedure. These 4 components, so when you look at overview, this is the what. What is the policy about? This essentially is just an overview or a synopsis of your policy. The intent is the why. Why is this policy being implemented? Why is it needed? The criteria is the who. So who is your policy appropriate for? You can simply address one type of population within the prison, whether you want to address maybe pregnant females, maybe you want to address sex offenders, maybe you're looking to target those convicted of a felony conviction or specifically a felony drug conviction. Who is this policy going to be appropriate for? So you also need to consider, again, their charge or offense, individual characteristics, as well as social and economic factors in here. And then the procedure. So this is your how. How is that policy going to be implemented? What are the specific steps that need to be followed to successfully implement that policy? And what will the inmates need to do or complete to participate in this policy? So consider some of the policies that were discussed in this week's readings, as well as the stories in Homeward that might suggest what would be most helpful for offenders while they're incarcerated. In Homeward, these individuals talk a lot about what it's like re-entering society. And with that, you can get an idea of maybe what would have been helpful for them while they were still incarcerated to increase their chances of success upon reentry. So I've attached 3 examples of policies within this week's module to give you an idea of the structure of a policy and how they're written. These will look different depending on the department, the agency, but these are just basic ideas, basic outlines of a policy. What I also need you to do is consider or assume that there are no restrictions or laws that you need to conform to for this policy. So the possibilities are endless of what you can implement as far as this policy goes. And I want you again to take this as a creative assignment. So be as creative as possible, knowing that you have no restrictions on this. So that's what you need to do for this week. If you have any questions, reach out, phone and email, or we can set up a time to chat on Zoom. I'm always here to answer any questions. If you need more information or some more guidance on how to write a policy, just reach out. I hope everyone has a wonderful week.